If you want to suggest a track, all you got to do is drop a comment in any one of the episodes. Um, we will pick it up, we will examine it, sniff it, and if the smell is unfamiliar to at least one of us, into the basket it goes. If not, it gets tossed onto the forest floor for the night animals to eat. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Audiophiles, you bastard. My name's John. His name is Andy.
It is.
No, I've done wrong. Left your heart torn. Is that what devils do? Took you so low, where only fools go. I shook the angel and you. More on that later. But first, we have a track to listen to today, and because it's Friday, yes, it is. We have a track selected by one of our wonderful viewers. In this case, the track was selected by Young Maid of the Castle. I'll stop there.
Good call.
Just always reminds me of an old limerick. There was a young man from Newcastle who wrapped up a turd in a passel. I just love that rhyme. Um, anyway, Young Maid of the Castle, dropped a comment on Ass Ponies episode, Kung Fu reference, and they suggested Wussy, Teenage Wasteland, live on KEXP. So Andy is going to react to this. Andy, what is your experience of Wussy, the band?
Thank you for qualifying that there at the end. To be fair, I've only heard of this band. All I know is that I know they're an indie rock band, and I know they're from America. And if I had to guess, I think they're Midwest, but I'm not even 100% sure. That's the extent of my knowledge of them. I've heard them talked about, maybe someone recommended, or I read a blurb about them in a Rolling Stone, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I know they exist. So I don't know where you are with Wussy, the band, and like where you stand with them, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Your knowledge is greater than mine.
Oh, okay, great. Then it could have been either of us. I see that when we did the old spin the bottle, flip the coin thing, it could have
Yeah.
easily landed on either of us and it would have been suitable. So, okay, cool. Well, then that's always, I don't know about you, but for me, it's interesting when both of us don't know because listening to it for the first time and learning myself as I'm doing the homework to give you information when you're done is always, I don't know, I find that more interesting than when I'm just cultivating information that I kind of already knew about an actor or song. So, yeah, great. Well, I'll go off and give this thing a go and come back and let you and the young maid and everyone else who tuned in my opinion and thoughts. I really am enjoying how there's this slow burn to how they're starting this tune off. It the way they've done it, and the way I'm interpreting it feels like there's this shimmering kind of memory or something that they're or just something special that they're reflecting on. The the overall sound of it has this reflective quality to it, like you're looking back at something fondly. And I love the way that they've slowly built this all together, and then in me created, like I said, this investment into the story that they're going to tell, just based off the tone and the slow burn build that they've got going on here. The Telecaster kind of combing through those notes, and its counterpoint in that Les Paul having this kind of brighter quality to it, especially when she was ascending the neck there. The occasional, little bass couplet of notes or triplet of notes here and there, and the drums are subtle. And even that lap steel, there's this like whirring and this kind of ambient sound that kind of just fills the gap a little bit there. It's all coming together really nicely, and again in a way that I'm intrigued to see where it goes from here, and maybe the narrative, if there is one, that comes along with it. So yeah, for me it already like smacks of like nostalgia or this fond reflection looking back on something. Sorry, I'll pull that back, but do you remember the moment is the first line of the song, and already she's kind of, at least it sounds like, verifying that there is this sort of like looking back. Do you remember the moment? It sounds like every bit of music up until this point has been spent conveying that they were remembering a moment. Excellent stuff.
Do you remember the moment you finally did something about it? When the kick of the drum lined up with the beat of your heart, stuck in the corn maze with only a transistor radio, making pies with the sound waves and echoes and old Bob. Oh, yeah, we heard you, Pete.
Yeah, Baba O, and then we heard you, Pete. Okay, so, and I love that they called this Teenage Wasteland. Most people call Baba Riley Teenage Wasteland, which is obviously a misnomer, but I think more people probably refer to it as that than by its true name. So yeah, oddly, this sounds like well, it's not odd. It makes perfect sense that this song is kind of looking back, maybe on a band that influenced their sound and is kind of like tipping their cap to them. Yeah, let's hear that bit again.
Making pies with the sound waves and echoes and old Bob. Oh, yeah, we heard you, Pete, real loud and clear on the last one. We were pulling for you 1,000 tons a day, and it don't take much to sound like a sleeping prophet. When your misery sounds so much like ours, so far away, so far away, so far away. Do you remember the night you finally heard something about it? When the kick of the drum went off like artillery fire. And if you're wondering, man, well, yeah, I would say that it got to us. The shrapnel flew right through the screen from the comedy hour. Yeah, we heard you, Keith. Real loud.
I'm sorry, I'll pull this back. It sounds like she's referring directly to their appearance on, is it was it the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour where they played and Moon rigged his set to explode, which caused, obviously, I mean, he got hit with, debris to the arm, and I think God, Townsend went deaf in one ear or lost partial hearing, I think, as a result of that. This sounds like it's a direct allusion to that performance, which is great. And I think now it's 100% clear that this is about The Who.
That it got to us. The shrapnel flew right through the screen from the comedy hour. Yeah, 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 we heard you keep real loud and clear on the last one. I must have listened to you 1,000 times a day. And for one short breath, it sounds like the world is ending. Exploding in space, beginning again, so far away, so far away, so far away.
So there really isn't much to say in the way of like critiquing this or really breaking it down. I'm heartened by songs like this where a group of talented musicians pay respect to those who inspired them to perhaps pick up their instruments or to start a band. And I think that this is a really great example of that. I guess I said all that. Now I'm going to have a minor. I guess what would have been, I would have enjoyed even more is if in those really lovely musical portions that sort of broke up the stanzas, if they would have like carried one or two of those out a little bit longer, particularly when the lap started really experimenting and doing more things. I wish that would have lasted a little bit longer to just kind of let that wash over you. That feeling of nostalgia that they so expertly created through music. I just wish that you had more time to let that wash over you. And I say that feeling of nostalgia, and I know that this is probably the sort of where the cutoff, where they of course they intended to create this feeling of nostalgia, but where my own lived experience kind of takes that and runs with it. But there are times where the lap steel, it was when I was doing more ambient stuff, more sustained notation, it reminded me of like crickets or locusts in the tree. And in more rural parts over here, growing up on a farm, that would sort of be like, depending on the season, this time of year for sure, this sort of soundtrack to sunset. You would hear these, insects speaking to one another, communicating, and it's a very nostalgic feeling for me because you're outside playing, getting in that last 45 minutes or an hour of sunlight before you run inside for whether it's a late dinner or your parents want you out and inside to grab a shower and all that stuff and get ready to call it a night. I don't know, all of that to me smacks of my youth. And even the running through cornfields. I mean, my one side of my property was completely surrounded by cornfields. So and we would run through them. So this idea of, turning through the cornfields and hearing what sounds like these insects in the trees, or in the tall grass, kind of doing their thing, it all rings true to me. It all does feel really nostalgic. And I just thought, the way that this was, put together lyrically sounded really great. The music was lovely. My only gripe was that when it kind of opens up a little bit and it really shines, to have capitalized on that a little bit longer at one or two of those points in the tune, to really, let that feeling of nostalgia wash over you. But I thought this was really great. I wonder if, those members in the Who that are still with us have heard this, and what their feelings are. I got to imagine that they'd be flattered to hear a song like this. I know I would be if I were any of them. But yeah, this is a really great listen, and a really fun suggestion. So, young maid of the castle, thank you so much for offering this up. I can't wait to learn more about, not obviously I know about the inspiration, but to learn more of, how they tackled this, and just more about the band themselves. So let's get back to John and do just that.
Suffering Succotash, he's back. So you've had to listen to Teenage Wasteland live on KEXP, or variables thereof, by Wussy. Please tell young maid of the castle. It's just a longhand for Marion, isn't it? But please tell me and all of us what you thought of it.
Well, first of all, that introduction back after the listening experience, that's one of the few times I've known the reference that you've used. So, Suffering Succotash, I grew up on that. The other thing, KEXP, man, are they ever going to get it wrong? I don't know if they will, but it always sounds really good. And here's another example of that. I love their production staff, the way they produce all of these, kind of studio live performances. Batting 1,000. So I really enjoyed that. The name was interesting. We could have belabored that a little bit longer on the intro and been like, "Hey, it's the phrase or the name that everyone misappropriates for the Who song. What is it, Baba O'Reilly or whatever it is?" Which, come on, even some of their fans call it Teenage Wasteland. So I would say 80% of listeners who are familiar with that song refer to it as such. So I wondered, what this. What was the connection? Because obviously, when you hear that phrase "Teenage Wasteland," the first thing you think of is the Who. So that was already in my mind when I press play. But when I press play, the song begins as it should. In this case, it's slowly built and it has this like emergent aesthetic where everything is developing, kind of like dust settling, or perhaps light cresting over a horizon. There we go. There is a shimmering but subtle bit of picked over notation on the Telecaster by our burly, tattooed, bearded fellow. And there's some resonant and seemingly distorted sounding lap steel before it slightly slides, ushering in a drum beat. And there is some additional bass notes that begin that plonk in as well. There was a little bit in the beginning as well, some bass that featured there as well. So I really like how they're slowly building this. And as the lap steel again eases its way back into the soundscape, the woman on the Les Paul gently kind of combs through chords that twang and ascend on the neck of her guitar. And what's been assembled to this point has a very reflective tone to it. And it feels like the shimmering memory of something special, something fondly remembered or cherished. They do a really, really good job of creating that mood and vibe just through the music alone in the first minute and 10 or so. And I really love when a band can, and we've talked about this before, can so expertly evoke in the listener the emotion that they're aiming for, that will then be kind of illustrated lyrically or fortified through its lyrical content. So yeah, they took me where they intended to. So, hats off to them because I'm already like I have this reflective quality about me and my mindset as the song is now over a minute into it. And then as if she knew that was crossing my mind, the female vocalist begins to deliver the first lines of the song. Do you remember the moment? And that's that's spot on. Instantly validates this nostalgic quality to the music they've crafted thus far. And she continues, you finally did something about it. When the kick of the drum lined up with the beat of your heart. I love that. That's such a great line, especially when you're writing this kind of love letter to music. And then she paints this picture of being stuck in a corn maze or a maze, is another way you could put that, with a transistor radio and making paths with the sound waves to the echoes of old Baba Yo or old Baba O. So, okay, checking boxes here. My eyebrows are firmly lifted, which obviously can only be a reference to the song I mentioned earlier. And the, it sounds like we have an ode to a song on our hands here, or perhaps at the very least an ode to a band who influenced these musicians. And given the next stanza is seemingly addressed to Pete Townsend himself, I think it is a pretty safe bet. She confirms that she hears him and that they're pulling for him 1,000 times a day. I believe she also refers to him as a sleeping prophet and notes how his misery kind of sounds akin to their own. And as she closes out the stanza repeating so far away, the song shifts slightly, becoming even brighter as the drummer focuses on the ride cymbal before the progression resolves and settles back into the next verse. And in it, she recalls a night when they'd finally heard something about it. And she mentions the kick of the drum going off like artillery fire and the shrapnel that flew through the screen from the comedy hour, which has to be an allusion to the Who's infamous performance on the Smother Brothers comedy hour, right? I didn't grow up then, but I saw footage. My old man told me about this. I've read about it, heard other musicians talk about it. It is a peak kind of music next to the Beatles on Sullivan. Probably it's up there, probably in a top 5 moments on 1960s television, where Moon rigs the drums in My Generation to go off at the end, and whether he intended to or not, I doubt it. He caught shrapnel to his body, and I think I don't know the severity of the hearing impairment that Townsend suffered, but I know that it had some sort of effect on his hearing thereafter. So yeah, very infamous moment, and she's sort of retelling, her experience watching all of this unfold. And halfway through these stanzas, we see the drummer and bearded Telecaster player that start providing harmonies, which aren't anything mind-blowing, but they do add a little bit of depth and texture to the vocal line in a part that frankly benefited from it, given the build-up in the narrative. Also, I couldn't help but notice how at times throughout this track and around this portion of the song, the lap steel took on a sound almost reminiscent for me of locusts in the tree or crickets in a field, especially when it really hung on the resonance. And that is often, they would often sound off around like sunset in the more rural parts of this country. And that sound, at least to me, also stirs this kind of nostalgia. So I found that really relatable and apropos to the whole reflective aesthetic that they'd crafted. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I think I even said in the reaction, this may be more of like a sort of a musical Rorschach for me that they didn't intend, but that sound kind of really evokes youth. You're outside playing around until the sun starts to set and the locusts are talking to each other and the crickets are humming and your parents are telling you to come in and get a shower or come in for dinner. And it all, it checked a lot of the boxes as far, and I was already in that mood anyway. So again, that may just be me leaning further into this feeling and looking for signs. But again, after the repeating of So Far Away, the band jams out as the the lap steel worries away a bit more in this sort of iteration of this portion. And the funny thing about this, though, the irony being, I would have enjoyed more time to reflect on that and what preceded it in a song that was clearly devoted to reflecting on music. Like that part could have lasted longer, given me more time to reflect on what had been presented to that point. And I just thought it ironic that they kind of zipped through that when it's a whole song about reflecting on music. It's like, come on, man, why not let that go out for another 30 seconds or so and let that lap steel really hum along there? But it is what it is. That's my only gripe in the whole tune. I even feel bad for saying it because this really is a heartening song. Nonetheless, it sounds great, albeit short lived. The band then repeats the earlier stanza that begins, "We heard you, Pete," real loud and clear on the last one. And this time it's equipped with the additional harmonizing vocals. And this transitions into one last brief jam, again, brief. And then the song kind of comes to a safe landing. I thought this was really sweet and heartfelt, like an homage to a band who clearly made a mark on these guys. So there really isn't much to me for me to dissect or critique here, outside of, I wish that either the second or third iteration of that musical placeholder between stanzas had been expanded upon a little bit. Aside from that, I just really enjoyed the song and the performance. And I'm interested to learn about their love for The Who, because it sounds like that's pretty evident. And obviously more about Wussy. I would also love to know, as one would probably at some point after hearing this, I think this would be in the top 5 things that they think of, is did the remaining fellas in The Who hear this song? And did they have like a published reaction? Was there anything that they had come out and said about this track, and maybe, the level of flattery involved in having a song written about them like this? And it's just kind of interesting to me what they would have said. So anyway, please tell me more. I thought this was a really fun, heartfelt listen.
Yeah, thanks for that, Andy. Yes, I thought this was very interesting as well. I think it was an excellent performance on KEXP as always. I think it was a really good song.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved the steel guitar, sort of that sort of buzzing nature to it. It was really interesting. I thought she had bags of charisma as well. I think that the sort of the undefinable last few percentage that makes a good song a great song, I think probably hinges on the listener's connection with the Who, which I don't have. I don't really rate them at all.
Okay.
I really prefer their really early mod stuff opposed to their sort of rockier stuff. So Baba Riley for me, it just feels a bit sort of over dramatic, but I don't really connect with that as much as their own, like Substitute. I think it's a fantastic song, but that's just me. Anyway, as I said about Us as well, as one of my favorites probably. But yeah, this was really interesting, and from what I discovered of the band, etc. I'll fill you on that later. But this is a really interesting shout, and I really appreciate it, because I wouldn't have stumbled across this myself.
Yeah.
So Wussy, formed in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is in the United States of America, in 2001. They're known and labeled as indie rock, folk rock, alternative rock, and country rock. The band consists of Chuck Cleaver, vocals, guitar; Lisa Walker, vocals, guitar; Mark Messerly, bass; Joe Klug, drums; and Travis Talbot, pedal steel. Former members include Dawn Burnham on drums and John Earhart on pedal steel, which I think is who you saw performing there.
Okay.
So Chuck Cleaver had just released the last album with his previous group, Ass Ponies.
Yeah. Okay.
Hence the recommendation.
There we go.
And then he met Lisa Walker and asked her to perform with him at a local awards show in Cincinnati in 2001. Following the performance, the duo decided to form a band together. They were joined by Messerly on bass and Dawn Burnham on drums in 2002. Burnham had not yet mastered the instrument, but joined as she, quote, loved their sound and wanted to be part of it. So the enthusiasm goes a long way. Cleaver and Walker actually write most of the songs, and then they either alternate lead vocals or sing in harmony. So it's a nice dynamic going on between them. They made the recording debut in 2005 with the album Funeral Dress. Whilst making the album, all 4 band members suffered some personal hardship or other, which inspired much of the following album, the 2007 album Left for Dead. That album was recorded with all the band playing together rather than in separate tracks, tracking their instruments, which resulted in what NPR described as a meaty collection of songs with the feel of a garage band, always on the verge of spinning out of control. It was chosen as the 14th greatest album of the decade by critic and Queen Bitch Robert Christgau. It was followed after that by the self-titled album Wussy in 2009, and that same year, drummer Berman left and was replaced by Joe Clark. So the next album, Strawberry, was released in November 2011, and former Ass Ponies member John Earhart joined the band before the recording started. It was chosen as the 8th greatest album of 2011 by Queen Bitch himself. The live edition of the band's first album, Funeral Dress, entitled Funeral Dress 2, was named the 2nd best album of 2011 on the same list by the same Queen Bitch. The next album, Attica, is their 5th studio album, and it was released in May 2014 in the May the 5th, the day after Star Wars Day, in 2014 in the United Kingdom, making it their first studio album to be released in the UK. And then the following day, quite rightly, it was released in the States. And the opening track from Attica is, you might just got an exclamation mark at the end. The opening track is Teenage Wasteland.
Oh,
it describes Lisa.
The only thing I want to jump, that's interesting because Baba O is the first track on that Who album from, what was it, like the late 60s, early 70s, 71 or something like that. But I think that's the opening track. So it's, I don't know if they planned it, but that's interesting that this song that pays homage is an opening track as well.
No, but is it Who's Next or is it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. It was Who's Next, which I think was 71, but I'm not sure, man. I don't,
It's got that grey building on the front, hasn't it? Yeah, I know which one you mean. So it described Little Walker's memories of listening to The Who, especially the song Baba O'Reilly, and includes shout-outs to several of its members. The song also contains a guitar part that closely resembles that on Baba O'Reilly. So this live performance at KEXP was recorded on June the 20th, 2014. So just, a month and 6 weeks after their album came out. Pitchfork wrote, at Wussy's best, and Attica is pretty close to that. They're capable of doing for us what Pete and Roger and Keith and John did for them. Robert Christgau, I'm going to think of another sort of guttural reaction for him. Wrote in Cincinnati Magazine, in America, and Wussy are very American, only Arcade Fire and Vampire Weekend show as much will and ability to make every album both different and superb. So the lyrics. Do you remember the moment we finally did something about it, when the kick of the drum lined up with the beat of your heart? Stuck in a corn maze with only a transistor radio, making paths with the sound waves and echoes in old Baba. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, we heard you, Pete, real loud and clear on the last one, and we were pulling for you 1,000 times a day. Don't take much to sound like a sleeping prophet when your misery sounds so much like ours. So far away, so far away, so far away. Do you remember the night we finally heard something about it? And the kick of the drum went off like artillery fire. And if you're wondering, man, well, yeah, I'll say that it got to us. The shrapnel flew right through the screen from the comedy hour. Yeah, we heard you, Keith, real loud and clear on the last one. I must have listened to you 1,000 times a day. And for one short breath, it sounds like the world is ending, exploding in space and beginning again. So far away, so far away, so far away. Yeah, we heard you, Pete, real loud and clear on the last one, and we were pulling for you 1,000 times a day. It don't take much to sound like a sleeping prophet when your misery sounds so much like ours, so far away, so far away, so far away. So yeah, just to confirm that, it was actually pretty much their breakthrough performance that initiated them to a wider American audience. They performed I Can See for Miles, and then My Generation on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour.
Yeah.
September the 17th, 1967. And the shrapnel did quite literally fly. So Pete Townsend aggressively smashed his guitar into his amplifier stack at the climax of the song. And then drummer Keith Moon had bribed a stagehand to overload his bass drum with far more flash powder than safety permitted, which triggered a massive blast. The unexpected blast shit everybody up. Embedded shrapnel in Keith Moon's leg, singed Pete Townsend's hair, and left Townsend with permanent long-term hearing damage.
Yeah, wow.
And the host was always a gibbering wreck. Yeah, everyone crapped themselves.
Of course.
Anyway, back to
It's just so wild, John, to think of like swinging hips, Elvis's swinging hips being taboo to just a very short amount of time when you think about it, to just exploding drum kits on stage, and like how rock and roll really just like came in like a wrecking ball in, you know, what, a decade or so. It's so I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for that period in time.
yeah. I think a lot of that would have been incredibly frustrating though, because I think if you were there at the time, it feels like it's going in inches.
Yeah,
You know?
you're probably right.
So back to the band. In March 2016, the band released their seventh album, Forever Sounds, which reached number 20 on the Billboard Heatseeker album charts. And the band's eighth album, What Heaven Is Like, was released in May 2018. So at the beginning of the band, Cleveland Walker were a couple, but they separated in 2007. But obviously they're still working together. And the band's name, Wussy, Cleaver joked, I think that it looks good on a t-shirt. That's why he shows it. The pedal steel guitarist that you saw in the performance here, John Erthard, died on May the 4th, 2020. And for years following Erhard's death, Cleaver and Walker performed mostly as a duo. And they played their first full band show with new member Travis Talbot in April 2024, opening for Guided by Voices in Covington, Kentucky. And then the band's ninth album, Cincinnati, Ohio, was released in November 2024. And as mentioned, the band is a favorite with some rock critics. In 2012, Robert Kreisgall wrote that Wussy have been the best since they released the first of their 5 superb albums in 2005, and he has called them his favorite band.
Wow.
Now, interesting. So I went off and I have listened to 3 of their albums so far this week. I've ordered 2 of them on vinyl.
Wow. Okay.
And there's 2 tracks I've already earmarked to give you on this channel.
Okay. Well, then I will.
Really,
The other
and
thing
I've
get to be when you're the one doing the homework, you get to get the head start on listening to the rest of their shit.
I really liked their early stuff a lot, more than this, and I like this.
Yeah.
But the bits I've so far, I've really enjoyed what I listened to. So I haven't done all of their albums yet. But yeah, their early stuff I really enjoyed. There's one that I can't find on vinyl. It's out there, as they say on the X-Files. The vinyl is out there, but
The tunes are out there.
exactly. But it's a question of getting to it at some point. But yeah, so I really appreciate the Maid of the Castle offering this up, because I said I wouldn't have stumbled across this probably, and I think it's, from what I've heard, is excellent. Really impressive. So yeah.
And it's really sweet to hear a band write a song earnestly about their, you know, affection or adoration for, and even if you as the listener weren't head over heels for them, it's still really nice to hear. So often we'll hear a band and you'll hear it in their music that they were fans of something, and you have to extrapolate that yourself and kind of be like, okay, you can tell that they listen. This is just like a love letter. and it's really sweet the way they've done it. And it's also really good to hear that they've got other songs about other subject matters. You know, I don't know if I could hear a whole album of just "I Love the Who," you know what I mean? But it's sweet that they did this one track to pay homage to someone who was so influential to them. It's also really nice to hear that they've got from you that they've got this other material out there that's really well over. It sounds like, you know, a decade plus of creating music together. So that's great. I look forward to hearing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, really good. Okay, I shall wrap things up. Thanks for listening, Sunday.
Thank you.
Young Maid of the Castle, thank you so much for suggesting this. We both really enjoyed this and
The lady.
will continue to. Folks out there, please tell us what you think. If you like this, do hit the like button and drop some comments. Let us know what you think. I'm just starting to get to know Wussy, the band, and their output. So yeah, if you're familiar with this band and can point us in directions as well, please do. We'd love to hear what you think. If you want to suggest a track, all you got to do is drop a comment in any one of the episodes. We will pick it up, we will examine it, sniff it, and if the smell is unfamiliar to at least one of us, into the basket it goes. If not, it gets tossed onto the forest floor for the night animals to eat. And if you're thinking of subscribing, please do. We really appreciate everybody to support the channel. So come on board and grab a paddle. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
Have a great weekend, guys.